Hey, what's up, guys? It's Bakes here, and thank you for joining me for day number 12 of my 31 Days of Horror. This is where I'm watching and reviewing 31 different horror movies over 31 days, all through the month of October. Today's film is one that most people would probably describe as a hidden gem. It's an indie film that I feel like has started to gain a little bit more traction again over the past handful of years and make waves for itself after the rise of apps like TikTok and whatever, where people can talk about horror movies in short form content and reach a wide range of audiences. But I think most people still consider this one to be more so a hidden gem. But today's movie from 2012, the film is titled Excision. Like I said, over the past handful of years, it started to get around again through apps like TikTok and whatever. At least that's what people tell me. I honestly don't really watch TikTok or at least spend much time on there, but I've heard a lot of people when I bring up this movie, they go, "Oh, I've seen that on TikTok in lists and whatever," and I'll get into reasons why it's probably showing up on lists. But I remember when this one came out in 2012, I originally missed it. I took a while for me to get around to seeing this movie, and then I finally did, and I'm probably in the minority for not getting the hype for this movie, as in I probably, like I said, I missed the initial hype for it when it came out in 2012, but there was a lot of people praising this movie, and the first time I checked it out, I didn't quite get the hype for it. This was my second time viewing it now. This is one that pops up on a lot of extreme, disturbing cinema lists, like top 10 most disturbing horror movies of the past 25 years and things like that, especially when it comes to underrated, modern ones that people would consider hidden gems and whatever. But I guess we'll get into discussing that as I get into my thoughts of this movie, but let's start off with the plot for Excision. So in this movie, we follow a teenage high school girl named Pauline. She's a bit of a weird unit, and we'll get into discussing that. She just sort of has fantasies about practicing surgeries and everything to do with medical, or more so the gory side of medical. She sort of has fantasies of giving people operations and doing procedures and stuff, but she more so fantasizes on the blood and gore, and it almost comes across as sexual at times. But anyway, she lives at home with two parents, a younger sister who has what is it? I think cystic fibrosis, if I remember correctly. Her mum's like pretty strict, hard by the rules. The dad's a bit of a pushover, and we're sort of just following Pauline through trying to reach this dream of hers, which, as I said, seems to be this dark path of medical leaning side of things, which we'll get into. It's a hard one to kind of explain. It's got some artsy stuff going on there as well. I think the first thing that really surprised me with this movie from the first time I saw it, and even rewatching it now, because it had been a little bit of time since the first time I checked this one out, but every second face in this movie was someone of note. Like, the younger sister is Ariel Winter from Modern Family. You had John Waters in this movie. Matthew Gray Gubler from Criminal Minds plays one of the teachers. Malcolm McDowell is another teacher. Ray Wise. Both parents, I recognize their faces, but I can't remember their names. But every second person in this movie, I'm like, holy fuck! For an indie film, it's really put together a pretty stacked cast. Like I said, for horror fans, you would probably most take note of someone like John Waters or Malcolm McDowell. But yeah, like I said, plenty of faces in this movie that caught me off guard and kind of forgot that we're in this. Anyway, so moving on with my thoughts of Excision, and like I said in the intro, the first time I saw this movie, I didn't really get the hype that everyone else was getting on about this film, and like I said, this is my second time watching it now, and unfortunately I still don't quite get the hype for this movie. It definitely grew on me compared to the first time I saw it, but still there's some issues sticking out with this movie that just sort of stopped me from really liking this one, and I guess we'll get into that. First of all, the lead in this film, I have nothing wrong with the actress and her performance. I actually think it's pretty good. Annalyn McCord, I think she does a good job playing Pauline, and I like the idea of who Pauline is. This girl that has this delusional fantasy, that's the best way to describe it, about doing these really difficult and intense medical procedures. She reads these books and she's so convinced that she can do it, and she's sort of got this complex about her. I really like the idea of this character and the idea of this story. I just find her to not be very likable, and almost a little too weird to try and invest and sympathize with, in a way. And I'm not saying that you need to like and sympathize with all your leads and whatever, but there was just nothing really likable or redeemable about her, and it's got nothing to do with her being, weird or anything. There's been plenty of likable outcast weirdos as leads in horror movies, and especially like teenage female ones or younger female ones, like movies like May and Ginger Snaps. They're two movies with female leads who are considered weirdos or outcasts, but I really enjoy those movies. Here, she's just almost like unredeemable. She's just like a terrible person, and her complex almost makes her come across as cocky. And again, I have nothing wrong with the actress's performance and stuff. It's just like the way that the character is written and something. There's something really holding me back from being like, okay, this is a character that I can get invested into. I don't hate her at all. I just don't really care about her. It sort of just comes across as like this neutral feeling. It's more, again, just curious to see where her story goes, because again, it is interesting to follow this character who is living in this delusion that they can do this extremely difficult thing, and especially when it's coming across as more of like a fantasy. You're like, okay, well, what is this character getting out of it? It is a cool concept. It's just the way that it plays out, and hopefully I'm explaining it well. And like I said, they do try to make you sympathize with her, but it just doesn't work, because to me the character's not overly likable, and a lot of the stuff that they've done isn't really, redeemable. There's a part where the mum starts breaking down to the dad in the bedroom about how Pauline is just, not normal and not doing things right, and it's meant to come across as like this emotional part, and Pauline overhears it and she starts crying because, she feels like her mum doesn't love her, I guess, and everything, and it's meant to be sad, but it's just not that impactful. Though, yes, maybe harsh to hear from your mum, and it's definitely harsh to hear these things from your mum and whatever, but the mum was like spitting like 85% facts, so it's kind of just like, like as a viewer from the outside where you don't have, a overly emotional attachment to these characters, it's just kind of like, it's true. Am I meant to be feeling sad right now? I just feel that disconnect there. Obviously, things that I'm about to get into can come into taste, but I do think this movie is also trying almost like too hard to be artistic and like stylistic. Like it's almost doing too much for its own good, if that makes sense. When you've got a story this niche and taboo and boundary pushing, that's already a lot. But when you start putting in these like artsy dream sequences and stylistic choices, sometimes it's just too much for me. And again, this part compared to our lead and everything, when I'm talking about style over a character, this one's just a lot more coming down to personal taste. I've heard a lot of people say that they really like the dream sequences in this movie. To me, it's just like, it's a little too much and off-putting to a point where, and again, it's going to come down to personal taste, but it's already like, this story is cool and it's boundary pushing and whatever, and these dreams just seem to be taking me out of it, and I already get that she's messed up because she's doing messed up things in real life, but those sequences and like overly stylistic parts and artsy moments, it was just a little bit too much for me in this movie. I know that so far in this review it's been mostly negative, which is a bit of a bummer, because like I said earlier, I actually don't hate this movie, and it's grown on me a lot since the first time I checked it out compared to watching it again for a second time now. I'll get to my score out of 10 now just to use it as an example, but I'll keep talking. After watching it again this time for today's review, I'm going to give it a 6 out of 10. The first time I checked it out, I think I gave it like a 4 or something, so jumping 2 points is actually pretty significant growth. Like, compare that to moving from an 8 out of 10 to a 10 out of 10, like, that's a pretty big jump there as well. So, moving up 2 points, it's actually grown on me a fair bit. There's plenty of like impactful scenes and things to stick with you, which I think a lot of people, that would be the talking points when they bring it up as being one of the more disturbing and grotesque modern hidden gems and whatever. There's plenty of things that you would expect, like gore, and as I said, this movie's got a lot to do with medical procedures and operations, but then there's also just a lot of like niche gross out things, like our main character Pauline, like she doesn't really take care of her own body sometimes, and a lot of that can make you come across as like queasy or whatever. And then there's just normal bodily things going on, but just the way that the movie stylizes it can come across as a little bit gross at times. But there's plenty of impactful things going on here that will stick with you. Again, the idea and the concept, the story, is something that works for me. It's pretty interesting, and it stays interesting throughout this movie. I just find the lead to be a little bit off-putting, just I guess the way that she's written and whatever. I think it's just one of those cases where I've sort of missed the hype, but the movie is still fine and it's still watchable. The scene that like really stood out to me this time in the movie, and I remembered it happening, but like it like really impacted me this time, and I guess spoilers potentially, I guess, but it's literally the final shot of the movie, and I mean like literal final shot, where it shows Pauline's face and she's crying and screaming, and her facial emotion just changes within a split second. And I'm not going to give away how the movie ends, but if you've seen this movie, go back and watch that scene, I guess, or whatever. But just seeing Pauline's face change from like numbness to almost like realizing what she just done, and then like the whole weight and reality hitting her at once and impacting her, and almost like, oh shit, like I guess potential spoiler again, but like I can't live up to this fantasy that I had, and just everything hitting her at once. I found that scene to be insanely impactful. But yeah, just like I said, maybe it's just one that I haven't quite hit the hype train for yet, and there's something quite not clicking, and that might not change over time, or maybe the next time I'll come back, it's grown on me even more. Who knows? But that's the thing about rewatching movies, never write one off. Because even after watching it the first time, it was one that I would have come back to, and I had an interest in coming back to, and I'm happy that I did for today's review. So, like I said, a 6 out of 10 for Excision this time around. It's a movie that like definitely has a crowd because, as I said, a lot of people consider it to be an underrated hidden gem. So I'm not going to not recommend it. I actually do recommend this movie. You'll probably get something more from it than me, hopefully, but so I still enjoy this movie, and like I said, I'm excited to maybe revisit it again in the future and see how my opinions differ then. But thank you for joining me for day number 12, and I'll see you for day number 13 tomorrow. Peace, guys.